In April 2025, the world was stunned when an attempted coup d'etat threatened Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré. The news quickly circulated on social media, causing a surge of worldwide solidarity. Thousands of people marched through Paris in support of the African leader, holding posters that said "Courage Traoré" and "No to Foreign Intervention." The movement was surprising, particularly in a city that has long supported French interests. The magnitude of the protests took Emmanuel Macron by surprise. As he viewed photographs of the crowd assembled in the landmark Place de la Bastille, he became increasingly concerned. As president of France, he understood that any public reaction may be seen as direct involvement in Burkina Faso's internal affairs. However, the level of public support for Traoré suggested something more: a veiled critique of France's neo-colonial actions on the African continent. Despite the dangerous situation that arose as a result of the coup attempt, Ibrahim Traoré remained steady. He had earned the hearts of many Africans with his advocacy of national sovereignty and opposition to international interference. In a live address to his people, he stated, "We will not allow our dreams of freedom to be stolen." His statement spread beyond Burkina Faso's borders, stirring protesters in Paris and throughout the world. Hawa Diallo, a Burkinabe journalist residing in France, was instrumental in organizing the protests. She utilized her media channels to rally supporters and criticize any suspected foreign involvement in the coup. "This is not just a fight for Burkina Faso," she said in a moving address. "It is a fight for all of Africa." Her words resonated among the demonstrators, bolstering the cause. Jean-Luc Moreau, a French ambassador stationed in Ouagadougou, found himself in a tricky situation. He had been summoned hurriedly to Paris to face accusations of a French involvement in the coup. Although he denied any direct participation, he understood that public impression was as important as the reality. During a private discussion with Macron, he cautioned, "If we do not act with caution, we risk completely losing the trust of the African people." Macron, under criticism from all sides, recognized he was in an unusual situation. The Paris protests were a clear indication that the world was changing, and France needed to adapt. But how? He understood that making the incorrect decision may exacerbate tensions and harm the country's image. The upcoming decisions would determine the destiny of Franco-African ties. Protests in Paris grew in intensity when videos circulating on social media showed suspected ties between French agents and Traoré's coup plotters. Although these charges were not formally substantiated, they did considerably increase popular skepticism. The protests escalated, blocking major routes in the city and demanding an answer from the French government. Macron, under increasing pressure, decided to speak publicly. In a televised address, he categorically rejected French complicity in the coup attempt. "Our policy has always been based on cooperation and mutual respect," he told me. The demonstrators, however, booed and cried hypocrite in response to these statements. The problem remained far from settled. Traoré, for his part, used the opportunity to reinforce his support. In an exclusive interview with Hawa Diallo, he stated, "The French people are showing the world that the truth cannot be silenced. We are one in this struggle." These words emphasized the fact that France was being challenged not just by Burkina Faso, but also by some of its own citizens. Hawa Diallo continued to spearhead the campaign in Paris, organizing daily marches and public discussions. In a stunning piece, she argued, "Macron must recognize that colonialism is not dead. It has just changed shape, and the people have had enough." Her text became viral, fueling cries for justice. Jean-Luc Moreau, who is currently under intensive investigation, made a desperate attempt to mediate. He recommended conducting an impartial investigation to shed light on the circumstances preceding the coup. However, his proposition was regarded with suspicion from both demonstrators and the French government. In an interview, he stated, "We are caught in a cycle of distrust that can only be broken through total transparency." In the midst of this growing conflict, Macron began to rethink his own attitude. He knew he couldn't ignore the demonstrations, but he couldn't just give in to popular demands. The fight was growing more personal, and he needed to find a way to restore France's reputation before it was too late. The pressure on Macron increased as the Paris protests received international backing. African leaders began to speak out openly, demanding a transparent probe into France's alleged involvement in the coup against Traoré. The French president's situation was growing increasingly unsustainable, as he faced criticism from both within and outside of the country. Meanwhile, Traoré took advantage of the difficulty to enhance his position. He called an emergency conference of African Union leaders and proposed the formation of an impartial tribunal to probe coup attempts organized by foreign forces. His effort was widely supported, and many regarded it as a chance to reshape ties between Africa and Europe. "The time has come to end the era of manipulation," he said at the meeting. Hawa Diallo remained a key player in the Paris demonstrations. She organized a big gathering on the historic Champs-Élysées, when thousands marched carrying posters stating "France, stop interfering," and "Justice for Burkina Faso." In a forceful statement, she declared, "We are not asking for favors. We are demanding respect." Her remarks reverberated throughout the world, converting the movement into a global cause. Jean-Luc Moreau, today seen as a major mediator, vigorously pursued a diplomatic settlement. He proposed a covert meeting between French government officials and Burkinabe leaders to discuss the investigation's future stages. Initially hesitant, Macron finally agreed, seeing that he needed to intervene before the situation became out of control. However, Macron was under increasing internal pressure. Members of his own party chastised his hesitations, while the opposition accused him of cowardice in the face of what they dubbed an African problem. He defended his judgments in front of the French Parliament. "We cannot continue to disregard the voices of the people, whether French or African. We need to adjust our strategy." These comments ignited passionate disputes while also opening the door to fresh perspectives. At the center of this political tempest, Traoré sent an open letter to the French people, thanking them for their support. He concluded, "Your solidarity shows that the fight for justice transcends borders." The letter was widely distributed and helped to humanize his image, strengthening the notion that Africa was not alone in its desire for statehood. The situation peaked when demonstrators briefly held the French Ministry of Foreign Affairs, demanding complete disclosure about the country's suspected role in the coup against Traoré. The episode received widespread coverage in foreign media, putting pressure on Macron. He realized he needed to act immediately to prevent further escalation. In an unexpected move, Macron proposed the formation of an independent panel led by international specialists to investigate the charges. In a televised speech, he added, "We are committed to the truth, whatever the outcome." This announcement provoked a mix of skepticism and praise, notably from demonstrators. Traoré recognized the opportunity to go forward from Ouagadougou. He advocated holding an international meeting in Burkina Faso to examine the future of African-European ties. "This is the moment to build bridges, not walls," he remarked at a press conference. His call was widely supported, with leaders from both continents confirming their involvement. Hawa Diallo was instrumental in organizing efforts to ensure grassroots views were heard at the summit. She arranged a series of panels with activists, journalists, and intellectuals to highlight the necessity of include local viewpoints in global decisions. "Without the people, any agreement would be an empty shell," she said during one of the discussions. Jean-Luc Moreau, working behind the scenes, successfully arranged France's attendance at the summit, securing Macron's presence. He understood this event would be a watershed moment in Franco-African relations. Traoré stated in a private chat, "This is our chance to repair decades of mistakes." The mood on the summit day was fraught with expectation. Macron and Traoré exchanged a quick but significant handshake, signaling the beginning of a historic debate. Despite their mutual disdain, each realized they had taken the first step toward a more equitable and balanced future. Following the conference, tensions gradually subsided. The independent panel issued its preliminary conclusions, which confirmed evidence of foreign participation in the Traoré coup, but did not specifically blame France. This uncertainty allowed Macron to save part of his government's legitimacy. While Traoré cemented his status as a pan-African leader, Macron encountered internal obstacles in attempting to execute the summit's suggestions. He recommended significantly reducing France's military role in Africa while increasing expenditures in sustainable development. However, these policies were greeted with considerable opposition from conservative sections within his party. "We are opening a new chapter," he remarked in an interview, "but this change will not be easy." Hawa Diallo continues to play an important role in molding public opinion. In a compelling piece, she underlined the little progress accomplished while cautioning against backsliding. "We must remain vigilant," she wrote. "Change begins with hope, but it must be sustained by concrete actions." Her insight was widely disseminated, emphasizing the need of staying motivated behind local concerns. Jean-Luc Moreau, now seen as a crucial mediator, continued his cautious efforts to enhance relations between France and Burkina Faso. He conducted a series of bilateral discussions to examine potential cooperation ventures in sectors such as education and infrastructure. His efforts were hailed on all sides, but he knew the task had only just begun. Meanwhile, Traoré faced internal obstacles as he sought to adopt changes to bolster Burkina Faso's democracy. During a tour to rural villages, he said, "The war for independence is never over. We must continue to work toward a better future for all." His statements inspired millions and solidified his position as a visionary leader. By the end of the year, a new dynamic had emerged in Franco-African ties. Though more work needed to be done, conversation was now open, and formerly disadvantaged views began to be heard. This was a sign that a future unlike the past was conceivable. Months after the turbulent events, Burkina Faso entered a period of rebirth. Traoré, now a well-known figure in African politics, continued to struggle for sovereignty and self-determination. He knew the true difficulty was in the long run, but his commitment remained unwavering. During the inauguration of a new university, he addressed the students directly. "You are the architects of the future. We plant now so that you might reap tomorrow." Macron, however, faced internal hurdles while attempting to modernize French foreign policy. Despite criticism, he believed that France needed to adapt to global trends. In an exclusive conversation, he discussed the effect of his actions. "To progress forward, you may need to take a step back. We cannot repeat the mistakes of the past." His statements provoked a mix of support and suspicion, but they signaled the start of a new diplomatic strategy. Jean-Luc Moreau, whose covert involvement had been critical to the process, opted to accept a new diplomatic post in another African nation. Before departing, he spoke with coworkers about recent occurrences. "Sometimes the tiniest deeds have the most profound consequences. Behind the scenes, I discovered that patience and discussion can bridge even the most profound disagreements." He departed Burkina Faso with a sense of duty completed. Hawa Diallo, now well known on the world arena, has continued to use her position to highlight underrepresented voices. During a press freedom conference, she declared, "The stories we tell shape the future we create. It is up to us to choose whether to perpetuate hatred or to create bridges of mutual understanding." Her speech encouraged young journalists throughout the world, emphasizing the value of truthful and inclusive perspectives. She also wrote a book on the recent events called The Cry of Africa, which rapidly became a blockbuster. In Burkina Faso, the great plaza of Ouagadougou has gradually restored its symbolic importance as a center of unification. The flags that had previously flown in the winds of protest were now raised in triumph. The people were aware that much more work had to be done, but they were proud of their accomplishments. During a cultural event in the plaza, singers, artists, and activists came together to honor the country's resilience. Hawa Diallo, who was present during the ceremony, stated, "This is a time of rejuvenation. We are reinventing who we are and who we wish to become." Finally, Traoré's words rang true as a final message. True power lies in learning from the past to build a better future. So, under a starry sky, Burkina Faso began writing a new chapter in its history. The wounds of the past remained apparent, but they served as a reminder that the struggle for independence and sovereignty was worthwhile. The future remained unknown, yet full of possibilities,